Michael Tours ran a small restaurant in the commercial district of Gateway Station, a massive orbital hub where dozens of species conducted trade, engaged in diplomacy, and participated in the complex cultural exchange that characterized the expanding galactic community. His restaurant wasn't fancy or prestigious. It didn't cater to wealthy elites or important diplomatic functions, but it served honest, well-prepared food at fair prices, and Michael had built a solid reputation for treating everyone with respect regardless of their species, economic status, or social position. Late one evening, perhaps 30 minutes before closing time, a young Thessaran woman entered through the main door. She was clearly a warrior based on her muscular build, and the faded military insignias still visible on her worn, somewhat threadbare clothing. But she looked exhausted, malnourished, and desperate in ways that went beyond simple physical fatigue. Her long, elegant ears, the distinctive feature of Thessaran physiology, drooped in the particular expression Michael had learned through years on Gateway Station, indicated extreme distress, profound shame, or both. She approached the counter hesitantly, moving with a slight but noticeable limp that suggested old combat injury. She began, then stopped, visibly gathering courage. I don't have any credits, but I haven't eaten properly in 2 days. Is there any work I could do for you? Cleaning tables, washing dishes, absolutely anything, just in exchange for a meal. Michael could see exactly how much pride it cost her to ask that question. Warriors, especially Thessaran warriors with their strong cultural emphasis on honor and self-sufficiency, didn't beg for anything. But desperation had clearly overwhelmed whatever dignity she was trying to maintain. "Sit down," Michael said simply, gesturing toward one of the empty booths. "I'll bring you food. We can discuss payment arrangements after you've eaten something." "I can't accept charity," she began, her voice carrying the strained formality of someone trying to maintain dignity in an impossible situation. "It's not charity. It's hospitality. You're in my restaurant, you're hungry, and I have food available. Please sit down." He brought her a substantial meal: protein, vegetables, complex carbohydrates, the kind of balanced nutrition someone clearly suffering from malnutrition desperately needed. She ate with controlled desperation, trying to maintain some semblance of proper table manners while obviously ravenous. When she finished that first plate, Michael brought her a second serving without asking or waiting for permission. She stared at the additional food, then looked up at him with an expression combining confusion, gratitude, and something that might have been suspicion. "Why are you doing this? You don't know anything about me." "Because you're hungry and I have food. That's sufficient reason." Over the next hour, as she ate and gradually recovered some physical strength, her story emerged in fragments. Her name was Kelthara. She'd been recently discharged from Thessaran military service after sustaining injuries in combat operations. The injuries weren't severe enough to qualify for full medical retirement benefits, but they were sufficient to effectively end her active combat career. She'd come to Gateway Station seeking security work, hoping her military experience would translate to private sector opportunities. But her lack of personal connections, combined with the visible limp from her injury, meant that potential employers consistently passed her over for candidates without obvious physical limitations. Her limited savings had run out completely. She'd been living rough in the station's less monitored sections for the past week, desperately seeking any legitimate work that would allow her to survive with some measure of dignity. Michael offered Kelthara a job on the spot, not as charity or pity, but as actual employment addressing a genuine business need. His restaurant's previous dishwasher had quit without proper notice 2 weeks earlier, and he genuinely needed reliable help with kitchen maintenance and food preparation support. The pay wasn't spectacular, standard service industry wages for Gateway Station, but it included regular meals as part of the employment package and was sufficient to afford basic modest housing in the station's working-class residential sections. Kelthara accepted the position with visible relief mixing with fierce determination to prove herself worthy of the opportunity. She wasn't just a good employee, she was exceptional. Despite her injury and the limp that occasionally became more pronounced during long shifts, she worked harder and more diligently than anyone Michael had ever hired. She learned quickly, took initiative without being asked, treated even the most mundane kitchen work with the same intensity and dedication she'd clearly brought to military service. But beyond simple work ethic, she brought something valuable the restaurant hadn't had before. She engaged naturally with Thessaran customers in their own language, made them feel genuinely welcome, helped bridge cultural communication gaps between species in ways Michael's entirely human staff simply couldn't match. Over the months she worked there, Kelthara transformed visibly. The desperate, malnourished warrior who'd first walked through his door became healthy, confident, capable. Her combat injury improved significantly with proper nutrition, and the physical therapy Michael helped her access through the station's public health services. She started smiling easily, joking naturally with the other staff members, becoming an integral part of the restaurant's working culture. Michael and Kelthara developed genuine friendship that extended beyond their professional employer-employee relationship. She told him about her military service, the pride she'd taken in serving her people, the devastating sense of loss when that career ended before she felt emotionally ready. He shared his own story, leaving Earth's intensely competitive restaurant industry to build something on Gateway Station that prioritized serving people over maximizing profit margins. There were moments when their friendship felt like it could naturally evolve into something more romantic, lingering eye contact that extended just slightly too long. Conversations after closing that continued well past any professional necessity. The particular comfortable silence that develops between people who genuinely enjoy each other's presence without needing constant conversation. But neither of them acted on those unspoken possibilities. Michael because he was her employer and didn't want to create any inappropriate pressure or compromise their professional relationship. Kelthara because she was still actively rebuilding her entire life and didn't want to jeopardize the first real stability she'd found since her injury ended her military career. Then, about 8 months after she'd started working at the restaurant, Kelthara's family contacted her with unexpected news. They'd secured a position for her, administrative and cultural liaison work with the Thessaran Diplomatic Corps, utilizing both her military experience and her growing expertise in cross-species cultural navigation. Excellent salary, comprehensive benefits, significant career advancement potential. The position was based on the Thessaran homeworld, which meant leaving Gateway Station entirely. Leaving the restaurant, leaving Michael. She told him about the opportunity with obvious internal conflict visible in every aspect of her body language. It's an incredible opportunity. Everything I've needed to properly rebuild my life and career after the military discharge. But it means leaving here, leaving the restaurant, leaving, she paused significantly, leaving the best thing that's happened to me since my injury ended my service. You should absolutely take it, Michael said firmly, deliberately ignoring the way his chest physically tightened at the thought of her leaving. This is exactly the kind of opportunity you deserve. I'm genuinely proud of you. They organized a farewell dinner, the entire restaurant staff, Kelthara's few other friends on Gateway Station, an event that was simultaneously joyful celebration of her opportunity and sad acknowledgement of her departure. Michael gave her a parting gift, a framed photograph of the entire restaurant staff and a handwritten note that said simply, "You always have a home here." Kelthara left Gateway Station the next day on a transport heading to Thessaran space. They promised sincerely to stay in regular contact, but both understood realistically that maintaining close friendship across that many light years of physical distance would be genuinely difficult. 3 years passed. Michael and Kelthara exchanged occasional messages, updates about their respective lives, warm and genuine, but increasingly infrequent as their daily experiences and immediate concerns naturally diverged. Michael's restaurant continued operating successfully. He expanded the dining space modestly, hired additional staff to handle increased customer volume, gradually became recognized as one of the better cross-species dining establishments on Gateway Station. But he never quite stopped thinking about Kelthara, occasionally wondering what might have developed between them if circumstances had been different. Kelthara excelled in her diplomatic position. Her military experience, combined with her genuine understanding of multiple species, cultural frameworks, made her exceptionally valuable in sensitive cultural negotiations. She advanced rapidly through diplomatic ranks, eventually becoming senior cultural advisor to the Thessaran embassy on Gateway Station. A position that, with considerable irony, brought her directly back to the place she'd left 3 years earlier. When she arrived back at Gateway Station for her new diplomatic posting, her first evening with free time, she went directly to Michael's restaurant. He was working in the kitchen when she walked through the front door, didn't immediately see her enter. She stood in the doorway for a long moment, taking in the familiar space that looked almost unchanged, except for some new decorative elements and the additional seating Michael had added. When Michael finally noticed her presence, he froze completely. 3 years. She'd changed noticeably, more confident in her bearing, more polished in her presentation, dressed in diplomatic formal where that spoke clearly of professional success and elevated social status. But her eyes remained exactly the same, and when she smiled at him, it carried the same genuine warmth he remembered. "I heard you'd expanded the restaurant," she said. "Thought I should personally check out the improvements, see if the food quality remains as good as I remember." They talked for hours after the restaurant officially closed for the evening, catching up on 3 years of experiences, filling in all the details and emotional context that brief occasional messages couldn't adequately convey. The conversation flowed exactly as it used to, as if 3 years of physical separation somehow compressed into nothing when they were actually together in the same space. Kelthara explained her new diplomatic position in detail: senior cultural advisor to the Thessaran embassy, which meant she'd be stationed on Gateway Station indefinitely for the foreseeable future. Michael told her about the restaurant's gradual growth, the various operational challenges, and small successes. Then, in the quiet early morning hours with the restaurant empty, except for the two of them, Kelthara said what she apparently hadn't been able to articulate 3 years earlier. "I left because accepting that diplomatic position was objectively the right career decision. But I spent the entire 3 years regretting it. Not the career itself. That's been professionally rewarding and personally meaningful. But leaving this place and what we were building." She gestured at the restaurant space, at him, that I regretted constantly. Michael and Kelthara didn't rush immediately into romantic relationship after her return to Gateway Station. They'd both grown and changed substantially over 3 years. They'd built separate lives that didn't seamlessly merge without deliberate effort. But they consciously, deliberately built something together, dating properly this time, without the complicating dynamics of employer-employee relationship or the desperate circumstances of Kelthara's initial arrival. They discovered that what they'd felt 3 years ago wasn't merely circumstantial gratitude, proximity convenience, or temporary attraction. It was genuine compatibility, deeply shared values, the kind of authentic connection that not only survives prolonged separation, but actually becomes stronger when finally reunited. 1 year after Kelthara returned to Gateway Station, Michael proposed marriage. Not elaborately or with dramatic public spectacle, just over a quiet dinner at the restaurant after normal closing, sitting in the same booth where she'd first sat desperate and starving years earlier. "You walked into my restaurant completely starving, intensely proud, and absolutely desperate. I gave you a meal and offered you employment. You gave me friendship and demonstrated what genuine dedication and personal integrity actually look like in practice. We built something meaningful that survived 3 years of separation, significant career changes, and growing in substantially different directions. I want to build the rest of my life with you." Kelthara accepted through tears streaming down her face, her ears positioned in the distinctive Thessaran expression, indicating overwhelming joy. Their wedding became a notable event on Gateway Station, a human restaurant owner marrying a senior Thessaran diplomatic advisor. Ceremony and celebration bringing together multiple species and diverse cultures in genuine shared joy. Michael's restaurant naturally catered the wedding reception. Kelthara had insisted absolutely on having the celebration there, in the specific space where their entire story had begun. Years later, when people asked how they'd met and eventually married, they told the story with complete honesty. "I was desperate, literally starving, at the absolute lowest point of my entire life," Kelthara would explain. "Michael gave me food and dignity and meaningful employment when I had absolutely nothing to offer in return except pride and determination. He didn't expect gratitude or future repayment. He simply helped because I genuinely needed help and he had the capability to provide it. She came in hungry and desperate, Michael would add. I fed her because that's what you do when someone needs food and you have it available. She worked harder and more diligently than anyone I'd ever employed. We became genuine friends. She left for a significantly better career opportunity, which was absolutely the right decision. Fate or chance brought her back 3 years later. We built a romantic relationship based on mutual respect and genuine compatibility, not on gratitude or obligation or circumstantial proximity. The initial kindness was just the beginning. Everything that came after the friendship, the separation, the reunion, the relationship, all of that we chose deliberately and consciously. He took care of a hungry alien warrior. Fate would later make her his wife.